This is Marlon Weems. I am the publisher of the Journeyman podcast and newsletter. I'm on YouTube and social media as well. And I am here with my good friend, Egberto Willies, who was kind enough to rush from his day job of his show and jump on with me. I really appreciate it, Egberto. Good to have
Well,
you here.
well, look, it's always my honor. Whenever you ask me to show, I'm going to show. I think you're my favorite financial genius. So if you
Wow.
tell me to show up, man, I'm going to show up most definitely. How you doing,
You
my
must
brother?
not know many financial geniuses if
Hey,
I'm
I
your
listen.
favorite.
I know one when I see one. I know one when I see one.
All right, all right, all right. Well, I was looking this morning at just over the last couple of days, this conversation around birthright citizenship. And what is interesting to me is that too many people, especially Black folks, don't think this has anything to do with them.
Oh boy.
I think a lot of people think, oh, it's just those guys, those folks,
Hmm.
the other people. In much the same way as Latinos that were here that are undocumented thought it was just going to be the criminals, and we see
Hmm.
how that's working. And knowing your background, I thought you would be a good person to speak to on the subject. And then we can also talk about just the bigger picture of the so-called big beautiful bill and what that's going to be about. But what are your thoughts in terms of we just had the Supreme Court case, although they did not really look directly at the birthright citizenship issue. They everything they do just feels like they're paving the way for the executive branch, i.e. Trump, to have more and more and more power. And so with that in mind, your thoughts.
I am glad you mentioned that, and I'm glad that I'm not the only one who sees it. First of all, let me just say that as a naturalized American from Central America, uh, I I take this so seriously that I am concerned about leaving the country and coming back, even as I
Yeah.
know that I have to leave. And one of the reasons, there are a lot of Panamanians that have gone back and forth to Panama without a problem. But given my history as a progressive activist, and
Hmm.
they take your phone and they look you up when you're coming back into the country to see your social media and all of that. And as soon as they pull up my social media, they're going to see somebody that is anti-fascist, anti-Trump, the whole works. And who knows what they'll be able to try for me coming in as a naturalized citizen. Today, there was a Karen at the bottom of the page that says, Trump going after denaturalization.
Yep.
Trump going after denaturalization. In other words, finding reasons to remove your naturalization.
Yeah. And
Okay.
and
So,
so it even um there is the I guess it came straight from the DOJ that they're looking for people who may have said something, that wasn't quite accurate on their, when they went
right.
through the process. So any excuse, to
Well,
basically kick
here,
you out.
let me tell you the dirty little secret. Not in my case, because I got mine through my grandfather, but let me tell you the dirty little secret about a large percentage of people from every single country that comes over here. They cut corners to get here as fast as they can and to be able to get that green card as fast as they can. That is just natural. Whether you're from France and wanting to live here, or you're from wherever, you try to do things as fast as possible. And there are a lot of folks that have done that. And if they ever decided to do that across the board, a large percentage of people would be denaturalized, if you will. Okay, so that is one thing. But the other thing is, your comment that the way you started the comment that a whole lot of Black people, and notice I said Black, I didn't specifically say African American. I wanted to use the word Black because that covers Nigerian, Jamaicans, Panamanians,
Yep.
everybody else in there. The reason I want to use that is specific, my brother, and it goes like this. I have been disappointed in all the excuses that a lot of folks have used not to come to the aid of our Latino, the Latino brothers that have the Latino stereotype most Americans think about. In other words, when somebody sees myself and you and I are just African Americans. I'm a Latino, you're an African American. I'm a Black Latino, you're an African American. That is how they defined us here in this country. I didn't do the definition, they did. But you and I may be cousins out of Nigeria. Who knows?
Could be.
All right. But I see all factions of us. When I say us now, I'm talking about from the diaspora, the African diaspora. I see them not coming to the assistance a lot of our Latino brothers and sisters, the ones that identifiable that way, and using the pretext that, well, a lot of them didn't come up and show up for Kamala, or using the pretext that, they are, many of them, racist towards us as well. And my answer to that is, as a Latino, I see the racism within and without the Latino culture. I see the intra Black racism, because you know as well as I do, and I don't pull punches when I'm talking these issues, because I think race is a stupid thing. I believe in humanity, but since we've decided to identify race as some sort of a dividing factor, I just speak about it freely. Now, we have decided, even within the Black community, that there are gradations of people that are color-based as well. So I don't really tolerate when folks say, well, we're not going to help out the Latinos because they're racist too. Well, my high yellow brother and sister have a tendency to be, to have a chip on their shoulder as well. So no, we have to learn to get over all that crap and start integrating as humans to solve these problems, because these are problems that they create, that plutocracy, the oligarchy creates to divide us up, so that in said division, they can do what the Trumps of the world are doing. You don't see Oprah fighting. You didn't. Oprah was out here
Oprah's
with
at Jeff
Bezos,
Bezos'
wasn't she?
wedding. She ain't worried about this.
That's my point. If things were so racial,
Right.
Oprah would be in the game. Beyonce would be in the game. All of them would be in the game. But it's only we peons who sit down here and worry about those silly things called race and all that kind of a stuff. So in my opinion, my brother, we have to grow up. We have to grow up and play the game. And the game is, all of us should be converging on our Latino brothers and sisters and what they're going through, because right now they're the easy prey. I will be the next prey when they detect a little accent, right? And it's going further and further and further and further away. And that is what we got to work on. So the birthright citizen issue is real, and it is actually very real to me, because of the fear that I have that my passport says American, born in Panama.
I tell you, and that was what made me think of you, knowing that background. At the same time, we've got a Supreme Court that, I think about the Dred Scott. I go all the way back to the beginning.
Yeah.
Where, the idea was that citizenship wasn't supposed to have anything to do with us.
Right.
Okay? By us, I mean Africans, brought to the United States,
Yeah.
enslaved. And
Right.
so with every time I see one of these Supreme Court rulings where you got somebody like Alito going back to the 1700s when he's doing his, he's writing his opinion, I'm just like, okay, at what point do they say, well, the original Constitution really didn't mean you? I mean, why not?
Um,
they're now taking away rights. So we can't act like, now granted, abortion wasn't an amendment to the Constitution, right to life, and or choice rather. So there's that. But still, these guys are really disassembling the last 50 years of progress.
You know, I did a piece a while back, several years ago, pointing out that that there's not really, we always talk about the equal legs of the government, the equal that the government has three equal
Oh,
parts.
checks and balances, in other
Yeah,
words.
checks and balances. And I always said that was never true. The Supreme Court, those 9 people on the Supreme Court now have always been the most powerful because anything that the executive and the legislative segment do could actually be overturned by these guys. The only thing about it is they don't have any way to enforce it, but they have a way to legalize it. Now, when it comes to what you just said, and I think you are so right in the fear that you have of what the originalists think about the Constitution. Because, first of all, we could keep going further and further back because we have to remember in the days when, look, I am not a constitutional scholar, but I read the Constitution and I kind of tend to believe I understand English, right? And the Constitution pretty much was written by, good guys, but fairly uninformed and backwards, and I hate to put it that way. These are guys who had ideas about women. So when we talk about the Constitution, we have to realize that it was only written as a capital document for white men and only
Who
white
own
men.
land?
Not thank you for saying that. Land owning white men, nobody else. So my white brother that had no land, hey, you're an honorary black man, but but I mean, I don't mean to be funny, but the truth of the matter is, how far do these guys want to go back? And people may say that doesn't that we are over dramatizing it, but are we? I think
I don't think we are.
I don't think
We
so
don't think we
either.
are at all.
I think when I heard all these panelists constantly saying things like, well, there's precedents, so that's not going anywhere. Or the language within the Constitution is so definite about birthright citizenship. I went ahead and read it again, and I'm like, I could actually make an argument that this was only for the kids of slaves, and which means a lot of if I have my daughter over here, even her could be deported. I mean, I could use all kinds of arguments to say it's really up to those 9 people how they're going to interpret that Constitution because whatever they say goes. And when it comes to
I'm sorry, go ahead.
and when it comes to alliances, that is where I talk about everybody should be allied. We should have white women coming in and saying, hey, just maybe the 19th Amendment could get overturned as well because, it follows particular rules within the Constitution and there are grounds to do this. I mean, it doesn't have to make a hell of a lot of sense for it to be overturned.
What we have with the Supreme Court, I mean, and it should not be a surprise. I mean, basically every one of them, as far as the majority,
Mm-hmm.
lied to us when they're Senate hearings. So there's that. You mentioned their power. What struck me in the last couple of years is how willing they have been to cede their power. Because in this last ruling, that's what they did.
Right.
Essentially, they kneecapped the judicial branch of the government. So where does that power go? It goes to Trump.
One caveat. I want to throw a caveat in there.
Sure, go.
They kneecap only what's below them.
Oh yeah, but think
they
about
still
it.
held
That
that they were the ones in command.
That allows the executive to just play, and I've said this before, he can just play catch me if you can, because the Supreme Court only takes a certain number of cases. So if justice moved slow before, it's super slow now.
But remember, again, when I said what they've done is they've also ensured that if there's something that they decide isn't up to par, they and only they, the Supreme Court, have the right to come in and say, no, that is unconstitutional. So the lower courts can't do it. And it takes a while to go up to the Supreme Court, but the Supreme Court has the right to say, bring this case to me.
Well, they do, but will they? And I'll give this as an example.
Let me just say, no, they won't. But
The
I just
case
thought
that
I
they
said, yeah.
just heard
Yeah.
was around the idea of, does the lower court have the power to do these, national injunctions? Now they took that case.
Yes.
But if you recall, when Biden was president,
Yes.
and a lower court put the kibosh on student loans,
Mm-hmm.
and Biden want basically the same exact thing.
Mm-hmm.
Biden wanted that case to be heard. They didn't really think that was urgent. But so
Yeah.
if it would be, I would feel a whole lot better with what you just said if I thought the Supreme Court was even-handed. But when you look at Trump's history, he's got tons of losses in the lower courts
Mm-hmm.
and as many wins in the Supreme Court. It's
Right.
literally, so he gets shot down over and over and over and over again. And his game is just, let me get to those guys at the top. I know I'll win.
Let me add this, okay? I don't know if you remember when Obama was about to appoint what's his name,
Merrick Garland.
Merrick Garland, right? How McConnell held it up.
Yes, I do.
Okay, I did a piece then where I said the games McConnell is playing, we should have played it harder.
Thank you.
In other words, we should have gotten rid of the filibuster. We should have gone ahead and did all the things necessary, which would have protected us against where we are today. Let me explain a little bit further. Republicans have always known that their policies are anathema to everything Americans want. They've always known that. And what they knew is that the only portion of our governmental system that isn't democratic is the court system. And therefore, they put all their energy into the Supreme Court and making sure they can get as many people on. But it didn't, even the district courts and all of these things, they try to pack those, but it didn't really matter. If they could pack the Supreme Court, they owned the country. The plutocracy owned the country. That's why Clarence Thomas and all of these guys can go out and they don't feel when the billionaires are treating them and they're flying off to a golf tournament or to Alaska, to a lodge. They don't even hide anymore.
They know they're bulletproof.
They're bulletproof.
Who's going to stop them?
Exactly. And that is who they are there for. They are there to protect the system for the plutocracy, the oligarchy. That's who they serve. And unfortunately, we only have 3 people that have a semblance of supporting the working class. And that's the 3 women.
Let me just say this. And for all of the good that Biden may have tried to do, it is hard for me to forgive him, for appointing Merrick Garland in the first place, because at that moment, what we needed was, we needed a cleanup man. To come in, and maybe it's Adam Schiff. I don't know who it should have been. I'm not going to even, because it's irrelevant now. But the idea that we went for virtually half of his term before the DOJ got interested in Trump. And they only did that because the House did this investigation that it just embarrassed the hell out of them. And they had to move.
Let me tell you.
Let me just finish, please.
Yeah.
And the other part of that is why he didn't expand the Supreme Court or moves. Now, I don't even know the mechanism for how you go about it. But I know that it needed to be done. Obviously, he couldn't do it by himself, but we had a moment there where the country would have, especially given that these guys had overturned Roe versus Wade. That was the moment, and Democrats repeatedly missed the moment.
Um, this is where the thing about Biden is, first of all, that's what comes when you have somebody living in the past.
Yep.
Biden lives in the past. All the older Democrats that are running the party right now, they are living with a Republican Party that used to be. And they have the inability to change and adapt to what is. They are living to what was when you had Bird versus not Bird, but when you had these Republicans that mattered. In fact, when we had Republicans that mattered, there were some of them that were actually progressive, more progressive than many Democrats in
Let
the
me
old
tell
days.
you something, Egberto. When I was, back in my Wall Street days, I was a member of a trade group
Mm-hmm,
of um, um, black folks that were in the investment arena.
mm-hmm,
And, we have these conferences every summer. I'm sure they're getting ready to have one now, if they haven't already. And one year, I forget, I want to say it was in Chicago, but it could have been somewhere else. And, we had an event, and the keynote speaker was Jack Kemp.
mm-hmm.
He wasn't a Democrat,
Jack
nicest
Kemp
guy
was a
you
cool
ever met.
guy.
And the guy everything he said was things that we would agree with now.
Yeah,
He was a Republican.
yeah,
So those guys were around. Years and years ago, I had voted for Republicans.
yeah.
I even campaigned for an Arkansas Republican when I lived in Arkansas. These
Look,
were these those guys who, they're long since passed away, they could not be in this Republican Party.
no, look, the truth of the matter is, had it not been for quite a few of our Republican brothers and sisters, there would be no civil rights bill. There would be
True.
none of these bills would have been there. So I mean, people have
Well,
to
think about
understand
it. You
where.
had Republicans back in the day when I was growing. You had guys like Edward Brooke,
Yes,
Republican.
from Massachusetts. Yeah,
Come on. I mean, so what we're dealing with now, I don't really think of them so much as the Republican Party as much as I do, um, white nationalists, because they're just in sheep's clothing. That's what we got.
yeah.
That party has just been overwhelmed by those people that have that thought, and the few that remain are scared to do anything about it.
That's a rebirth of the Dixiecrats. That's who they are. The
Yeah,
rebirth
pretty
of the
much. I
Dixiecrats.
mean, those were the guys that when I was a kid in Little Rock, Arkansas,
Mm-hmm.
that's who those people, guys like Mitch McConnell,
Yeah.
you know, that was the kind of, I mean, my grandparents considered themselves Republicans,
Mm-hmm.
but they couldn't vote, but
Yeah, but
yeah,
but the thing about it, I think Martin Luther King was a Republican.
probably at
I
that
think he
time,
was.
most blacks I knew, especially in the South, you've been crazy to be a Democrat.
That's my point. I think Martin. It wasn't till that shift came with the what is it called? What they called it, the
The
I
Southern
forgot,
strategy.
the Southern Strategy.
Yep.
And then that's where the big turnaround came. But again, and that is what, when you get somebody as old as Biden is and working with the way that they thought Congress worked, etc., it's a different ball game. And he just got played left and right. He got played and he got played. And there's another thing also known as camaraderie.
Oh yeah.
And okay, and there's and
Well, keep in mind he came out of the Senate.
right. And here's the thing. And I want, for those my white brothers that's listening to this, I want them to take it the right way, but there is this thing that I've noticed, and I've had other white brothers tell me this directly. There is a certain resistance to really put these guys away. Okay, there is a certain resistance. So, in Trump, Biden saw a piece of himself. I'm not talking about our younger white brothers now. I'm talking about these older white brothers. There's just something about putting each other away that doesn't quite work. And if you take a look at, if you even take a look at Donald Trump, look at how he pardoned certain Democratic governors and certain Democratic, if you take a look at the camaraderie that occurs there, it is like la banda de amigos that we call it back home, and some people are just not a part of that community, if you will.
Well, I just think maybe, just to kind of elucidate the point a little bit, I think Biden came up in the world of we can disagree, but we don't have to be disagreeable.
He does, yeah.
Okay. And I don't know that it's so much about class. Someone asked that question. Well, to the extent that these people are all in the same, proximity of each other in terms of power. You're talking about the Senate. These guys are, back in the day, their families all ate dinner together, the wives hung out,
Mm-hmm.
that all ended in the House for sure with Newt Gingrich when he blew everything up. He really was the catalyst to get us to where we are today. My opinion, anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But Biden, how long was he in the Senate? Like decades,
Oh man,
right?
he
So when he got,
more than half
when,
his life was service. Look, the
yeah,
guy was a great guy. Don't get me
oh, no,
wrong.
and I'm not just beating up on Biden. I mean, it's just the reality of what we saw happen. Um, I believe that, and I remember him. This was something that he would say when he was running, was that he could talk to these guys. He could
Mhm.
get these guys to be bipartisan, do deals, and he got
hold,
some stuff done that way.
hold that thought. I want to interrupt you there
Go ahead.
because
Yeah,
that is what you just nailed it. That's what I mean. You remember when he became Obama's vice president, right? That was necessary
yeah,
because there were certain things that he could do that Obama could never do. Okay.
yeah.
And he was the backstop for Obama. And Obama would tell you that in
I don't think it
very
was a secret. He had
yeah,
Obama had to have a white man to
exactly.
legitimize him.
Right.
He just did.
He
And
needed that wingman.
that was what had to get done for him to be president. And he was smart enough to do it. And at that time, that made sense because
Yes.
we're talking about pre-Trump Republicans. That's not where we are now.
No,
We're
no, no.
dealing, we're over here operating in process and whose turn it is to be in a certain role. And, think about what's happening in New York right now with Mamdani,
Mamdani. Yeah.
this guy is a democratic socialist. That is not the same as, Russian socialism. This guy is talking about things that are going to help people. He's not talking about
Right.
socializing the modes of government. And Democrats are fighting this guy harder than freaking Republicans are.
Yes.
So are you telling me he's worse than Trump? I mean, what are you saying? It just makes now, I think it's reflective of a couple of things. I think it's reflective of who's paying their bills.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to just, I'm going to just say this. We have to recognize the the power that the Jewish lobby has on
Mm-hmm.
Democrats. If you're taking money from these guys, they're going to come calling. And now that's what's happening. When you
Well,
hear
look at
Hakeem
look.
Jeffries talk the way he's talking,
I am
they're
so
quoting this
disappointed in
guy.
Hakeem Jeffries.
They are quoting this guy for things he's never said.
Hakeem Jeffrey, I tell you what, when if the House is taken over, I am actually not going to be in support of Hakeem Jeffries
Well, I'll
for
tell
the
you
moment.
this. I'll tell you this. I was looking at some of the results,
Hmm.
and Mamdani won Jeffrey's district by 7 points.
Wow.
Yeah, 7
Wow.
points. What is scaring them is how he won.
Mm-hmm.
These young people that we always say never turn out, boy, did they turn out for him. And that is, I think, planted the seed that, oh shit, oh
Exactly.
shit, these young people may actually turn out in the midterms,
Right.
right? And if they do, you're gonna say goodbye to a lot of these folks. And as a 67-year-old person, I think I'm cool to say this. These old folks got to go, man. And they are afraid that if this guy is successful, not necessarily that he's going to be the one to do it, it's going to energize the Gen Z, which has not turned out like we would like it to.
Right. Right. And I tell you something, dude. As it turns out, first of all, people like you have to speak out because you're a financial guy, and they would try to use the financial excuse against him. We know it's out there, other reasons as well. But we need to have guys like you actually speak out and change the narrative because that is so bad right now.
I'll tell you what, I'm happy to do it. And I hope that I can get more traction so more people hear it. But, you know, I have had this argument with, it's typically with MAGA, guys that I know that have
Mhm.
voted for Trump, where they say, oh, this, what they call the EV mandate, which is silly, but okay. I had a guy tell me, oh, they're subsidizing these EVs. And I'm like, you ever bought any gas? We
Big time.
subsidize the oil industry, we subsidize farmers, we subsidize sugar producers, we subsidize everything. But we don't want to subsidize people getting jobs. We don't want to subsidize people buying their first house. We don't want to subsidize. I mean, think about it. The guy is talking about a state-run grocery store, bodega,
Hmm.
whatever.
In a desert, in
He's
a
not
food
fixing
desert.
the price of the food. He's just not trying to rape and pillage like, capitalist culture demands.
Yes, exactly.
That's it. I mean, so yeah, um, it is amazing to me though. I have to be honest. I really was not following New York's race until Cuomo started getting all of these endorsements, and I'm like, what the
They
hell's going
panicked.
on?
They
Yeah, it was
panicked.
panic. When I saw Bill Clinton endorsed, I'm like, dude, read the room. What are you doing? You do not need to be the guy getting involved getting involved in this with your track record, right? And Kirsten Gillibrand.
Oh God.
Now, she was already dead to me because of what she did, to the senator from Minnesota, Al Franken.
Hmm.
Now, to think that she drove Al Franken. She was instrumental. I mean, she led the charge to get Al Franken to resign and then to turn around and support this guy. How,
It's a
how,
shame.
how, what's the calculus? I mean, are they so bought and paid for that they can't process how that makes them look? How,
It's
you
a
know?
shame. It's a shame. It's a shame. But you know what, Marlon? We will all get over this. We will all get over this. I told my audience today, I'm going to have to check out in a little bit, Marlon,
Sure.
but I told my audience today that it's okay to check out for a while. It is okay to take a break for a while, but that ultimately we have to stay engaged because it is what you do, what we're doing here, that is beyond the mainstream media that creates a problem. But we have to be here.
Well, you notice, I mean, we can look at this platform and I'm seeing some of it. I'm glad to see it. And we've talked about, the so-called stars that are on this platform now. And I'm
Mhm.
starting to see guys like us.
Uh-huh.
to some of them, which is good, you know,
Yes.
because we're out here, man. We're fighting a good fight, and we're unknowns for now.
Right. Well,
But
that's okay, man.
yeah, you know, we're under the radar too. So
And you
the
know what?
underground network.
I gotta check out, man. I only had a half
No
hour,
worries. Well,
but
I
I
will just
want.
say this, and because I actually have to move on to folks, be sure, if you're not already, subscribe to my man Egberto's Substack. You can check him out on YouTube, but support his work. He's working hard. Dude, you're up in the morning. I wake up and I'm seeing you on. So, you know, he's out there fighting the good fight. I'm doing my part, but I'm older than Egberto. So,
I want to add to that. I want to say we are doing the work because it's a we thing. It's a us thing.
it has to be.
And I banter off of you and I learn a lot from you. And I think as long as we have that open mind to really be in a manner that gets people engaged, we're okay.
That's right. So, folks,
So
you know, if you can support us, subscribe, and we will see you on the other side.
thank you so kindly,
Egberto,
my brother. And
we have to
thank
do this
I'm
again
honored to be
soon.
on your program.
Oh, absolutely. Anytime. Talk soon. Take
Yes,
care.
sir.